now in session. Judge Abdush presiding. Today we will be hearing the case of People vs. Goldilocks. You may proceed.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Ida Pagosian, and today I will be portraying the role of prosecutor.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Lila Hanna, and today I'll be portraying the role of defense attorney on behalf of the defendant.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Anaida Haratunian, and today I will be portraying the role of the defendant, Goldilocks.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Gabriella Allen, and today I will be portraying the role of Mama Bear.
If there are no pretrial motions at this time, let us proceed with opening statements. Prosecution?
Yes, Your Honor. May I please the court?
You may.
The law does not tolerate disregard for others' property and privacy. This defendant did not simply eat and sleep at the cottage. She broke, stole, and vandalized with complete disregard for her actions. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury and opposing counsel, the evidence will show that the defendant committed several crimes, one after another. Goldilocks had intentionally intruded my client's property with the intent to commit a theft. From a young age, children are taught to respect others' boundaries, which Goldilocks had completely disregarded when entering my client's cottage. Your Honor, Goldilocks has reached a certain age in which she should be able to distinguish right from wrong. She had intentionally committed several crimes with a guilty state of mind. When entering the Bear cottage without consent, Goldilocks had immediately ate the limited supply of food that the Bear family could provide for their child. You will hear the defense argue that Goldilocks had been focused on survival during the time of this incident. However, the evidence will show that the defendant had tasted from each porridge bowl, claiming one to be too hot and another to be too cold. These details would not have mattered to an individual that is in a critical state of hunger. The evidence will show that the defendant had also broken an irreplaceable chair, leaving a complete mess of the living room that had once been neatly furnished. Goldilocks had shown little to no consideration towards this innocent child's belongings. Furthermore, the evidence will show that Goldilocks had covered the blankets and pillows that Mama Bear had spent all year knitting with filth and grime. Without hesitation, the defendant left the cottage, leaving the Bear family in complete mortification due to the many crimes she had committed. Your Honor, the prosecution will prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Goldilocks had violated Penal Code Sections 459 and 602 when intruding my client's cottage with the intent of committing a theft. The defendant stole, broke, and damaged many of the Bear family's belongings with no regard towards the consequences of her actions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Simply trying to survive. Your Honor, Goldilocks was trying to survive. A scared, lost, and hungry child with no evil intentions other than to seek safety. The prosecution desires to argue that my client, Goldilocks, being only 12 years old, possessed a malevolent mindset to purposely cause damage to the Bear's property. But that is definitely not the case. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the court, today you'll meet Goldilocks, a sweet young girl who went to the forest to pick some mushrooms to prepare a family meal. Along the way, she got lost, and after a full day of being tired, helpless, and hungry, she was lucky enough to encounter a cottage that would provide her comfort and safety for a single hour from the freezing cold and dangers of the woods. Your Honor, my client has been charged with the California Penal Code Sections 459 and 602. The defense argues that Goldilocks should not be held accountable for all the charges that are being placed upon her. During the time in which Goldilocks entered the Bear's house, her brain was at survival mode. Goldilocks was lost in the woods and was just searching for warmth and shelter. She was scared and unaware of further consequences, like a deer during hunting season. In that given moment, Goldilocks was all caught up and hungry. When she entered the Bear's house, she thought that no one was home and the porridge was going to go to waste. Similar to Goldilocks, many individuals will eat whatever is in front of them whenever they are hungry. Furthermore, the evidence will show that Goldilocks was indeed respectful towards the owners of the cottage, but only entered to seek further help. The evidence will show that Baby Bear's chair would have broken either way due to its minimal strength, and that Goldilocks was careful the second time in making sure that the bed would not break. This poor child had no evil in mind to cause fear and scare others when she was terrified herself. Goldilocks is only at the age of 12. an age where one's mindset is not fully developed, and an age where it's difficult for one to find a solution to difficult problems like being trapped in the wilderness. My client would have never wished for anything bad towards others, being the sweet, kind-hearted child she is. Your Honor, Goldilocks was simply trying to survive and simply trying to find answers to a situation she has never encountered before. My client was simply trying to survive. Your Honor, members of the jury, at the end of this trial, the defense asks you to return to sympathy before making your final decision. With this in mind, the defense asks you to find Goldilocks free from all charges. Thank you, Your Honor.
Before we begin, Your Honor, the prosecution would like to mark evidence for identification. First, we would like to mark the image of the Bear's cottage wide open door for identification as Exhibit A. Second, we would like to mark the image of Baby Bear's broken chair for identification as Exhibit B.
Does the defense have any objections?
No, Your Honor.
Would the prosecution like to call up their first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution would like to call Mama Bear. May I proceed?
You may.
Good evening, Mama Bear.
Good evening.
What is your current occupation?
I'm currently a housewife. I cook all the meals for my family and clean around the cottage.
Can you briefly tell us how you occupy yourself on a typical day?
Well, I start the day off by cooking porridge and cleaning the cottage. By afternoon, my family and I usually take a quick walk in the forest before coming home to knit blankets and clothes to keep us warm throughout the winter.
When leaving the cottage for your usual walks, do you normally leave for a long period of time?
Well, I'm usually gone for about half an hour every day to pick berries in the forest for supper.
Do you get any visitors near your cottage?
Not that I know of, we don't see many people this deep in the forest, although a couple of months ago this has changed.
What do you mean?
Well, sometime in January, I had overcooked our usual breakfast porridge and decided to take a walk in the forest a bit earlier than usual. I left the door slightly open for the porridge to cool off.
Directing your attention to Exhibit A, do you recognize it?
Yes, it is the image of our cottage door.
Upon your arrival, was the door wide open like it is portrayed in the exhibit?
Yes, it was, but we left it slightly open when leaving the cottage, so I quickly assumed someone had broken in.
Your Honor, at this point, we would like to move Exhibit B into evidence. Did you notice anything else unusual?
Well, all three bowls had been slightly tasted out of, with an exception of Baby Bear's. His porridge bowl was completely empty.
Do you remember Baby Bear's reaction when seeing the empty bowl of porridge?
Yes, he seemed devastated.
Did anything happen after that?
I began to suspect that the intruder must have done a lot more damage when I heard Baby Bear scream.
Do you know why he screamed?
Yes, Baby Bear's favorite chair was broken into many pieces on our living room floor.
Directing your attention to Exhibit B, do you recognize this image?
Yes, that would be Baby Bear's broken chair.
Your Honor, at this point, we would like to move Exhibit B into evidence. How long has he had this chair?
That chair has been passed down our family for generations, so it immediately became his the day he was born.
Mama Bear, has this chair ever broken in the past?
No, it's actually quite sturdy. It was specifically made for an infant cub Baby Bear's age.
What happened next?
Well, I heard a faint snore come from our bedroom upstairs and went to tell Papa Bear.
Then what did you do?
We started walking up our stairs as quietly as possible. I held Baby Bear in my arms and Papa Bear stood in front of us.
Did you find the visitor in your bedroom?
Yes, she was sleeping in Baby Bear's bed and made a huge mess in our room.
Mama Bear, can you identify the defendant in the courtroom tonight?
Yes, she has long brown hair tied up into a ponytail.
Can you describe what the mess looked like?
Well, our beds were undid and the pillows and blankets I spent all year knitting were covered in dirt and thrown on the floor.
When you found Goldilocks in your child's bed, what did you do?
Well, at first I was in shock when hearing her scream for help, so I asked, "Why are you here? And what do you want from my family?"
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Your Honor, this is an exception to hearsay of excited utterance, as Mama Bear had been shocked and quickly reacted by shouting at Goldilocks.
Overruled.
And how did she respond?
Well, she didn't. Without an apology, the girl just stormed out of my bedroom and ran out the cottage.
Have you seen her any day before today's courtroom session?
No, she never came back to repair any of the damages that she caused.
Mama Bear, has Goldilocks' actions impacted your family in any way these past few months?
It most certainly has. My family has gone through a lot of trouble to repair the damages that she caused.
Thank you, Mama Bear. No further questions, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may I proceed?
You may.
Good evening, Mama Bear.
Evening.
Please answer the following questions with a simple yes or no. Mama Bear, did you leave the cottage door open?
Yes.
With the door being wide open, is it possible that anyone could have entered the house?
I guess so, yes.
Now, let's talk about the porridge and Baby Bear's broken chair. Mama Bear, did you ever see Goldilocks eat from the porridge?
No, I did not.
Did you ever see that Goldilocks broke Baby Bear's chair?
Again, I did not.
Moving on, you have mentioned that Baby Bear's chair was passed down to him for many generations, correct?
Yes, that's correct. It is a very valuable item.
Yes or no?
Yes.
And so that chair was quite old, yes or no?
It is old but quite sturdy for
Yes or
baby.
no?
Yes.
Well, the chair could have become weak and fell apart, correct?
Maybe, yeah.
And lastly, Mama Bear, directing your attention to the moment you found Goldilocks in Baby Bear's bed, did you shout at Goldilocks, yes or no?
Yes, I did.
Thank you, Mama Bear. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
May I begin?
You may.
Mama Bear, why did you leave your cottage door open?
Well, I overcooked our breakfast porridge and wanted to leave the door open so it could cool off.
Well, weren't you afraid that someone could have broken into your cottage if you just left the door open?
No, we don't see many people in the forest. Goldilocks has been our first in many years.
Directing your attention to Baby Bear's chair, has it ever broken in the past?
No, the chair would have remained sturdy for any cub baby bear's age.
And how did you react upon seeing his broken chair?
Well, I was scared, so the moment I saw Goldilocks, I began to shout at her out of fear.
Thank you, Mama Bear. No further questions, Your Honor. Your Honor, the prosecution has no further questions or witnesses.
Your Honor, the defense now would like to call up their first witness, Goldilocks. Your Honor, may I proceed?
You may.
Good evening, Goldilocks.
Good evening.
How old are you?
I'm 12 years old.
Where do you live?
I live in a small cottage near the woods with my mom and dad.
Please describe what is it like living next to the woods.
Well, since both of my parents work all day, I'm home alone most of the day, and I spend most of my time cooking.
Let's recount the last time you cooked a meal. Do you remember that day?
Yes, it was January 15th, a very cold day. I went to the forest to gather some mushrooms, but I didn't return in time to cook the soup.
Why? What happened?
Well, I was immediately attracted to the beautiful nature of the woods that I completely lost track of time.
What time was it?
I'm not sure, but it was really dark and I couldn't see anything.
So what did you do?
I decided to take a nap until it was morning.
What did you do the morning you woke up?
I continued to walk around until, to my luck, I came across to a small cottage.
Did you get closer to the cottage?
Yes, I did. I was really scared and cold from last night, so I wanted to see if there was anyone inside that would help me find my way home.
Was there anyone?
No, there was not. I even yelled out, "Is there anybody
Objection,
here?"
Your Honor. Hearsay.
Your Honor, this is hearsay, but it is an exception of state of mind. This statement shows that Goldilocks was in an emotional condition and was trying to search for help after being lost. Knowing that no one answered her back, she was in the mental state to later enter the cottage.
Overruled.
Again, Goldilocks, was there anyone there?
No, there was not. I even yelled out, "Is there anybody home?" But again, no one answered.
Goldilocks, directing your attention to Exhibit A, do you recognize it?
Yes, it is the image of the entrance to the bear's cottage.
What, if anything, did you notice after seeing the entrance?
I went closer and saw that the door was wide open.
Seeing that it was open, did you go inside?
Not immediately.
What do you mean?
I actually knocked a couple of times to be respectful, but there was no answer again, so I eventually went inside.
Why did you make this decision?
Well, after being lost for an entire day, the cottage immediately gave me safety and warmth.
Upon entering the house, what did you see first?
First, I probably entered the dining room because the table was set and there were 3 bowls of porridge.
What did you do next?
Next, I decided to wait for the owner, so I sat on all of the 3 chairs and chose the most comfortable one.
Which one did you choose?
The smallest one.
Was it indeed comfortable?
Well, I don't know because it was really squeaky and it seemed like it was very old.
What if anything happened at that moment?
After I barely sat on it, it immediately broke into pieces. I landed on my back and my head hit the floor.
What did you feel?
I was very dizzy and I could see the chairs and table just spinning around me.
What happened after that?
I don't know how, but I found myself inside a different room.
Did you do anything while in that room?
Yes, I decided to take a nap because I wasn't feeling well and I also wanted to wait for the owners.
Where did you sleep?
Well, there were 3 beds just like the 3 chairs. I wanted to get on the smallest bed because I thought it would be the most comfortable.
Objection, Your Honor. Narrative.
Your Honor, this question requires a longer answer because Goldilocks is explaining why she was more careful with the bed she slept in.
Overruled.
Goldilocks, where did you sleep?
Well, there were 3 beds just like the 3 chairs. I wanted to get on the smallest bed because I thought it would be the most comfortable. But since the broken chair became a lesson to me, I carefully and slowly laid on the bed so it wouldn't break again. And after being convinced, I eventually slept there until I woke up.
Did anything cause you to wake up?
I heard really loud footsteps pounding on the floor, and when I peeked from my blanket, I saw a family of bears approaching me.
What did you do?
I was so terrified that I was constantly screaming help, and at the same
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Your Honor, this is an exception to hearsay of excited utterance, for Goldilocks was lost and scared. Without further thinking, the first thing that comes to mind to those who are lost is the obvious phrase, help.
Overruled.
Goldilocks, what did you do?
I was so terrified that I was constantly screaming help, and at the same time just sprinting towards the exit of the cottage.
Once you left the cottage, what did you do?
I was still traumatized, but soon I eventually found my way back home.
Thank you, Goldilocks. No further questions, Your Honor.
May I begin?
Yes, you may.
Good evening, Goldilocks.
Good evening.
Please answer the following questions with a simple yes or no. Did you receive permission from the bear family to enter their cottage?
No, I did not.
After being convinced no one was home, you still entered the cottage.
Yes, correct.
Now, regarding Baby Bear's chair, you mentioned it was squeaky, correct?
Yes, that's true.
And knowing that it was squeaky, you still sat on it, causing it to eventually break.
Unfortunately, yes.
Goldilocks, you said that you felt guilty for intruding into their cottage, correct?
Yes.
Have you even apologized or fixed any of Baby Bear's belongings that you had vandalized?
No, but I really wanted to.
No further questions.
May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Goldilocks, why did you enter the bear's cottage?
I was really scared and I didn't know what to do, so I finally thought that the best thing to do was to wait in a safe place to get further help.
Moving on. When you sat on Baby Bear's chair, did you feel anything unusual?
It looked like the chair was made for someone my size, but it instantly felt very weak and delicate.
Did it break immediately?
Yes, it broke in a matter of seconds. It's like I didn't even get to sit on it.
And finally, did you get the chance to apologize and pay back for the broken chair?
Not really, I couldn't.
Why couldn't you?
I was horrified to death upon seeing the family of bears, and all I could think of was to run.
But if you had the chance, would you do?
Yes, of course, without a doubt.
Thank you, Goldilocks. No further questions, Your Honor. At this point, the defense rests.
Now, would you like to proceed with your closing statements?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may begin.
The law does not tolerate disregard for others' property and privacy. This defendant did not simply eat and sleep at the cottage. She broke, stole, and vandalized with complete disregard for her actions. Your Honor, the prosecution has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Goldilocks violated Penal Code Sections 459 and 602 when intruding the Bear family's property with the intent of committing a theft. The evidence has shown that the defendant unlawfully entered and remained in the Bear's cottage, committing not one crime, but two. Under Penal Code Section 602, a defendant is found guilty when trespassing one's private property without consent. Goldilocks entered the victim's cottage, knowing that no one was home at the time of her arrival. After knocking just once, she entered the property, immediately stealing from the Bear's limited supply of forage and damaging many of their belongings. The witness statements have not once mentioned Goldilocks receiving consent to enter the cottage. Under Penal Code Section 459, a defendant is found guilty of burglary when unlawfully entering a home with the intent to commit a theft. Based on Goldilocks' own admission in her statement, she entered the Bear's cottage, testifying, "As soon as no one answered, I entered the house." Goldilocks entered the cottage belonging to the Bear family, knowing very well that she was intruding their property. She then proceeded to eat Baby Bear's entire bowl of porridge while tasting and ruining Mama and Papa Bear's porridge as well. You will hear the defense argue that there isn't enough evidence proving that Goldilocks ate the porridge and therefore she did not commit a theft. However desperate, the defense's argument has failed for three reasons. First, the circumstantial evidence has shown that Goldilocks ate the porridge as she was the only intruder to enter the Bear's cottage. Second, Mama Bear testified in her witness statement that she had left 3 bowls of porridge on the kitchen counter when leaving the cottage for a walk in the forest. Upon her arrival, Baby Bear's porridge was completely gone. Goldilocks must have eaten his porridge as she was the only intruder in their cottage. Third, Goldilocks had every opportunity and motive to eat the porridge after being lost in the woods for an entire day. She must have been hungry while entering the Bear's cottage with an intent of stealing food. The defense may also argue that Goldilocks had no intent to commit theft in the cottage. However, this argument is misleading. Goldilocks could not have eaten the porridge without having intent. Eating an entire bowl of food cannot be accomplished unintentionally. The evidence has shown that Goldilocks did not only have intent to eat the porridge, but she also had the motive, as she must have been hungry after being lost in the woods for an entire day. As an aggravating factor, please keep in mind the defendant's overall conduct. Goldilocks had shown a lack of respect for the owners of the cottage by tasting from all 3 bowls, breaking Baby Bear's chair, and trying all the beds for her personal comfort and pleasure. This is not someone who is simply trying to survive. This is an act of a criminal with total disregard for others' property. Your Honor, the prosecution is charging Goldilocks under Penal Code Sections 459 and 602. The defendant was not given consent to enter the Bear's cottage and had clearly shown intent to commit a theft when eating Baby Bear's entire bowl of porridge and tasting both Mama and Papa Bear's porridge as well. Your Honor, the prosecution has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Goldilocks should be found guilty for violating Penal Code Sections 459 and 602. I trust that you will make the right decision and find the defendant guilty. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may I proceed?
Yes, you may proceed.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. In the case that the prosecutor has presented to you today, there is insufficient proof to convict. This isn't a case of an individual breaking and entering with the intent to ransack, steal, and plump, but rather a case of innocent survival, simply trying to survive. My client was simply trying to find safety and shelter. This young, poor, scared child sitting across from you had no intentions of causing anyone harm, but was rather frightened and seeking refuge while trying to find her way back home. Imagine wandering in an unknown place, surrounded by strange people, approaching sundown with no shelter and no one to turn to for help. Imagine the fear she must have been facing. Mama Bear testified herself that the door was wide open, hinting to a warm welcome for the young girl. My client was indeed respectful of asking if anyone was home and even knocking several times, despite the door being open, in order to ensure that she does not disrupt anyone. How could this be breaking and entering? How can my client be charged with theft, burglary, and destruction of property? Now, the prosecution is trying to make you believe that this young innocent girl is guilty, but they have failed to prove up their case or show any evidence that Goldilocks did indeed have the requisite intent. Goldilocks neither damaged property, nor was she burglarizing the property. Your Honor, the people would make you believe that Baby Bear's chair broke because Goldilocks sat on it. But no, Your Honor, that chair broke in only a matter of seconds. A few seconds that show how old and extremely delicate this chair was. So fragile to the point that Baby Bear himself could have supposedly broken it. Your Honor, that chair was made for someone the size of a bear cub. Goldilocks is definitely in that size range, if not then even smaller. So if anything, that chair would have broken either way. In addition, the people have failed to show that Goldilocks was indeed the person to steal the porridge. Mama Bear nor anyone else have been able to see the person who ate their breakfast, and so it is unacceptable to simply blame my client. Moreover, Goldilocks was merely trying to seek refuge and comfort. She slept in the bed, bundling up because she was tired and faint as a result of the frightful conditions she had to endure. My client would have never entered a stranger's home if it wasn't for a difficult situation. She is a 12-year-old girl who was lost all alone in the woods, with no food, no shelter, and feared for her life. Your Honor, this is a simple case of survival. A young girl seeking refuge and seeking help, just like any child would do. My client was solely seeking assistance. She was simply looking for a safe place in hopes that someone would help her get home. Your Honor, it is the burden of the prosecuting attorney to prove that the defendant is guilty, and it is evident that throughout the course of this trial, the people have failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that my client is guilty. They have simply not met the burden of truth. The people were unable to prove two main things. One, they have failed to provide sufficient evidence to show that Goldilocks was indeed the person to eat the porridge. And two, they have also failed to provide enough evidence to show that the chair was broken with the intent, whereas in reality, it simply broke due to its old, weak, and fragile state. The people are trying to force incorrect puzzle pieces together to supposedly end this trial by finding my client guilty. But Your Honor, they failed to ultimately recognize the correct pieces and understand that my client never entered the cottage with a guilty mindset. We ask that you bear in mind the survival story of a young girl seeking refuge while trying to make her way back home. We would ask you to render the only reasonable verdict, not guilty. Thank you, Your Honor.
We are all familiar with the standard of proof. The prosecution must find the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt and prove all elements to the standards placed upon Goldilocks in our case. Based on the evidence and facts of this particular case, I will find the defendant innocent.